I think people get tattooed because, there's not a lot of real stuff left in the world, and it's all like the 24-hour news cycle. Nothing lasts. With tattooing, it's blood, it's pain, it's permanence. When you get that needle in your skin for the first time, you have to be there. You can't just call it in. You have to sit there and take the pain, and then sit there and heal it, and then you got to live with the consequences of your action.
Good morning. Welcome to the East West Podcast with Horisumi. Today, I'm doing something a little bit different. It's an interview podcast with a friend of mine, a guy named Dimitriy Popov. Now, Dimitri is a custom knife maker. He's also a client of mine. So about 10 years ago, I started tattooing him. I did 2 sleeves on him, 3/4 sleeves with chest. Really nice work, some of my best work. And as he mentions in the podcast, I did a photo book of my work, and he was on the cover of it. So it's work I'm really proud of, beautiful work, and he's obviously happy with it. And while I was doing that, he started being a custom knife maker about 12 years ago, and I started buying his custom knives off him. So I have a little collection of his knives. So I'm a little bit biased. I think there's some of the most beautiful, artistic edged weapons going right now that I've seen anyways, that I've had access to. And so I wanted to sit down and talk to him, get to know a little bit about what motivates him. He's gone from sort of tactical fishing, hunting, everyday carry knives. Now he's really big into the chef knives and culinary knife scene, where he's made a big name for himself. He's been on magazine covers. He's does a lot of the knife shows. He's very well, his work is sought after. And so you can see some of his knives here. I'll show you. Check them out. I mean, everything is done by hand in his workshop. The grinding, the forging, the heat treatment. He makes all the handles himself. I mean, it's beautiful stuff. And I've got some, and they are works of art. Because he's focused these days on mostly Japanese style knives, I thought it appropriate to have him on the show, talk about his passion, his motivation, how he got into it, and where he's heading with his stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast, and I learned a lot listening to him. I hope you guys do as well. And at the end of the show, you can see his link to his website and his Instagram, where you can go check him out and maybe buy a knife from him one day. Who knows? All right, guys, enjoy the show. Dimitri, how are you, buddy?
What's up, Kian? Good to see you, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, listen, thanks for doing the show today, dude. I know it was a bit of short notice with the holidays and everything, but I wanted to talk to you about a few things. I mean, you and I have been friends for a while now, like 7, 8 years. I think I tattooed some sleeves on you.
Yeah, man.
We did one sleeve, then we did the other. And I mean, for me, it's some of my nicest work that you have on your arms with that
Thanks,
pasty
bro.
white skin.
Perfect canvas for you, right?
Well, yeah. You are a very well-regarded custom knife maker. And I remember when I was tattooing you, you were making a lot of like Japanese blades and stuff, more tactical stuff. Like you're making hunting knives and some tanto knives. And I've bought a bunch of your knives. So I'm a huge fan of your work.
Thanks, man.
But I've watched you progress over the years, and now you're doing a lot of kitchen knives and kitchen cutlery and stuff. And the reason I wanted you on the show was because tattooing, utilizes that shokunin spirit. I don't know if you know this word from Japan.
Yeah, of
shokunin.
course I do, yeah.
Right. And you exhibit this spirit very much so. I mean, your meticulous attention to detail. I look at the stuff you put on Instagram, and I'm blown away by how straight and the fucking, what's it called with the kamon? Is that what it's called?
Hamon, yeah. So honyaki, so differentially heat-treated blades where the top is still soft on the spine and the edge is really hard, and there's a transition line that's called hamon.
Right.
Where martensite turns. There's basically like so when you're heat treating it, the steel is austenite, and then through the heat treating processes turns into martensite, and that line is a definition between the two structures.
Right.
Yeah, very difficult to achieve, man. That's the hardest thing for me to do, honyaki. But I've been working at it for the last 12 years, so kind of getting there.
Yeah, it's wild, man. 'Cause, I have some Japanese swords, some real ones from
Yeah,
5,
I've seen
8
them.
years
Yeah,
ago. And the stuff that you're doing, I mean, that's why I buy your knives. Every time you put a knife out that I can get my hands on, I'm like, I want that, because I feel like your work is something special. The energy and the spirit you put into it is something that, will be an heirloom I can give my grandkids and stuff.
Yeah, thanks,
So
man. It's a bit of gift and a curse. Like I sometimes wish I could just knock more knives out, but something inside of me doesn't let me until it's
right.
as perfect as I'm able to get at this point in my career. So yeah, it's a time-consuming, all-encompassing hobby, that's for sure.
So is it a hobby or is it I mean, you're still
Well,
working a day job, right?
yeah, man. So I still got a day job. I have thought about transitioning to full time on a number of occasions. What is stopping me? There's good money to be made, but for me to think of knife making as a sole source of income, that would put an enormous pressure on me as a provider for my family, and I think it would just take a lot of my creativity and passion out of it. I'll just treat it as a business, and that is the
Right.
last thing I want to do.
Right.
Yeah, and then
So
obviously there's other paths. I could have an apprentice, and I could build that up into more of a production line, and that's also not where I want to go.
right.
For me, it's me making knives with my own hands. That's where I get the satisfaction from.
So let's run through how you got into this. I mean, how does one start taking pieces of steel and turning them into art? That fascinates me because with what I do, like I make the ink, I construct my
Yeah,
needles there, I do my artwork. There's all these processes before someone even gets a little bit of ink in the skin. So
yeah,
with what
man.
you do,
And sorry to interrupt, man. And I love what you do, right? Like with a little sashibo, and you tie up the needles, you make them up into configuration. You got the sumi, like I mean, you got the Suzuri stone. I love that process, man. It's fascinating to watch, and I suppose knife making is somewhat similar.
mm,
There are tools you can buy, of course, but and you can buy them now. 12 years ago, when I started, there was nothing to buy. The industry of the knife making, not the art of knife making, and I am founding member of Australian Knife Art Association. So we promote the art of knife making.
yeah,
We've taken this little niche artisan hobby into a massive industry. Now these days in Australia, you can pretty much buy anything you wish. You go on a website, Artisan Supplies, run by my mate Corin. You can buy anything you need for knife making, from steels to consumables to machinery. 12 years ago when I started, there was none of that. So, and also social media was just in its infancy. It
yeah,
didn't really exist. So forums is where I found a lot of information. Um, Started with some English speaking forums. Usual Suspects Network was the one where I started on, Blade forums, and then I started to get into some of the Japanese forums, and that was really challenging because of the language barrier, obviously. But yeah, man, that's how it started. It started with me just collecting some EDC, like everyday carry pieces. I was
yeah.
always into like little gadgets, folding knives and little torches and things like that. And I purchased a fixed blade from US, got it in through customs. It was a bit of an issue. Anyway, finally got it, and it didn't arrive with a sheath, like no holster. And I thought, right, well, I need to make a holster. I need to get someone to make a holster. I've looked everywhere in Australia. There was no one that would make them. The only people that would make them would be back in US, so I'd need to send a knife back.
So is this
And
a
I was like,
fixed
this
blade
is fixed blade, yeah.
with no
And I
sheath?
was no sheath, didn't come with a sheath. Yeah, it
Right.
was a surprise to me as well. So I was like, well, for me to go through all this trouble again, get it sent back to the US, like that sounds ridiculous. So that was my first go of like, how do I make a sheath?
Right. The
And
necessity to make a sheath.
yeah, I had to do it, right? I couldn't find anyone. I was happy to pay the money to do it. I just couldn't find anyone. And I found a few articles, and I should also say that up until that point of time, um, I've never possessed any hand-eye coordination. I've never had to build anything.
You're a banker,
Um,
aren't you? You work in a
yeah,
bank?
well, yeah, I work in a bank, dude. Like, I've played basketball my whole life. I've done some martial arts, but like, I've never built anything with my hands. I've never
Right.
really owned a toolbox. I never had a workspace or workbench. So for me, this was like, starting at the ground zero. I need to buy a workbench. I need to buy some screwdrivers. I need to buy some like
Yeah.
basics of basics tools. Anyway, so that's how it started. I bought a couple of basic hand tools, bought some thermoplastic called Kydex. So this is when you heat it up, you can shape it, and when it comes to a normal room temperature, it basically solidifies to whatever shape you've bent it to. So there's a thermo forming process. So this is what I started with, making sheets from Kydex. Pop some rivets into it. It's actually quite easy to do, and
Yeah, I've
I've
got some
mastered it.
Kydex at home, but I haven't
Yeah, man.
used yet.
Yeah, well, some of the stuff that I've made for you has Kydex sheets, right? Like it's a
Yeah,
durable stuff, really practical.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so that's how I started, and I made a handful of sheets, and I was like, this is really enjoyable. That satisfaction of creating something from nothing with your own hands,
yeah.
that just lit up a fire under me. I was just like, wow, I'm enjoying this so much. I'm getting so much enjoyment out of the process and the result. Let me see what I can do next. Someone suggested making a knife, and I was like, what? Like, where would I even start? Um, yeah, and I, made a few friends on the various local forums, and a gentleman called Dave Winch told me where to buy my first real simple grinder, where to get some steel. And yeah, that's how I started. I just basically started that way. In the early days, I didn't do any of my own heat treatment. I sent it out to a place in Melbourne, Hills Heat Treatment. Yeah, the results weren't great. A lot of my
So
knives came back.
when you buy
Not,
you, so you're buying regular steel, right? Like, and
yeah,
then
so well,
you
yeah, it
shape
has to
it.
be. Yeah, so it's not like, basically the steel needs to be, well, you can't just make a knife out of mild steel because you'll never be
Right,
able to heat treat it. It's got to be like steel with a certain level of carbon content in it.
right.
And you can go two ways. You can either go the carbon steels, which have a lot of benefits, or you can go the stainless steel route.
Right.
Um, so yeah, basically those are the two main directions. And then yeah, depending what you go with, each steel has its own heat treatment protocol to get the most out of it.
Right.
And it's a really deep rabbit hole, man. Like it's really, really deep rabbit hole.
So did you study all the different sort of traditional shapes of knives and the different sort of benefits to each shape? Like there
Um,
seems to be an entire world of knives and swords out there, right?
yeah. Oh man, absolutely. Especially when you get into the Japanese style,
Right.
like
Which is what
Western.
I like,
Yeah,
you
which
know,
is
is
what you're interested in, and me too, right? Like that's what I do. I'm not at all attracted to the Western shapes, Western styles. I've had some at home for a while, before I got into knives, so I know what they are. But
yeah.
when I got into the Japanese style knives, like man, as you know, anything in Japanese culture, it's so well thought through and just
Yeah.
perfected to a point where it's beyond ridiculous. They have a knife for every single task, for peeling an apple, for skinning an eel, for sashimi, for vegetables, like for mushrooms. Like there is a knife for every single task.
Right.
Um, so yeah, that was that's another really deep rabbit hole to try to understand what is the factor that makes that specific shape applicable to a particular task.
And what
What are the
differentiates an eel peeler to a potato peeler, right?
Yeah, man, like it's yeah. So unagisaki, like it's if you want to Google that later, it's an awesome looking knife just for eels. Like, it's
Right.
crazy, dude. And they got the eel spikes to hold the eel while you are working on it.
Right.
Yeah, man, it's just really appealing, for someone like me that has an addictive personality. When I get into something that I like, there is no end to that journey, and that's probably like just like with tattooing. Knife making isn't something that you can truly master in a single lifetime.
No.
You'll learn bits and pieces. You'll become quite good at some aspects of it, maybe even an expert at some aspects, but certainly not all.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. This is what I try to reiterate to myself, as well as to my students and to my customers, is that I'm still a student myself, right? I'm still
Yeah,
it's a
forever.
journey of
Yeah,
learning forever. And the
100%,
people,
man.
the worst thing that can do to stunt your growth and stunt your craft is to think you know everything, right? You know?
Yeah, and like sometimes I've fallen into a little bit of a crevasse, I suppose. Where I kind of didn't see where to go next. And I
Right.
think with that was one of the transitions that I made from tactical and EDC style blades into the chef knife world.
Yeah.
I kind of just felt like, right, okay, well, I've learned how to make a really good everyday carry or a camping or a fishing knife. Like that, that I've stopped progressing. So
Right.
opening that door into the chef's knife world, that was just like finding another planet for me.
Right. Right. I was going to turn some
Yeah,
lights on in here, man. It's just a little
yeah,
bit
man,
dark.
go for it.
You look so bright in your workshop there. I felt a little bit like I was in a shadow, right?
I cut my hair yesterday, man, for the summer. It was a lot longer yesterday.
So, one of the things I find funny about your knives is when I bought one of your knives a year or so ago, and you sent a Band-Aid in the box
Yeah,
with it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
My wife literally cut herself within about 45 seconds of having
yeah,
the knife in
man.
her.
Yeah, I used to do that. I've stopped including band-aids because like maybe I'm being a bit too presumptuous here. I'll
No, it's
trust
funny,
people
dude.
with.
It's a funny thing that
Yeah,
people remember, right?
I did it for
Because you
many
should do
years,
it.
many years. Yeah,
'Cause your knives are fucking sharp, dude. My wife cut herself again the other day with the production knife I bought off you. Now,
yeah, yeah.
run me through that story, because
Oh
I used
man,
to I used to always bust your balls, right? Because
yeah,
I'm a business owner, I'm a craftsman, and as much as tattooing is commercial and I have a business, I also, I'm passionate about what I do, right? So I remember I used to hassle you when you were in pain, and I'm like, hey man, you should fucking do this, you should do that. Mr. Ideas
you
guy
do
over
a
here.
lot of shit talking when you tattoo, man.
I have to, bro. It keeps me it keeps me occupied, and B, it keeps you fucking mind off the pain, right?
That's probably true. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
But I used to say you should do a production knife. You should do a production knife,
yeah. You
and
said that for ages.
I did that say that forever, and you did. Not that I
Yeah,
encouraged you, and I'm not saying
yeah,
that
yeah,
that's my fault. But you had it made in Japan, right?
yeah, yeah,
So how did that work? You designed it, or you sent a
yeah,
prototype?
yeah. Yeah, so man, it's a long story actually.
That can't
And it
seem to
took
have been easy.
and it took me many years to get something going. Again, you know what Japan is like and what the attitude towards the foreigners is, right? Um, so, I mean, you have some good friends, obviously, and I have a couple too. But to get into to get into that industry as an outsider is extremely challenging.
Sure.
So I've had a few goes at it. So probably about I don't know probably about 5 years ago now, maybe six. I've contacted a large number of manufacturers and sort of various workshops and all over Japan, primarily in Sakai, which is like the core
Yeah.
knife making region.
And
Um,
sword making too, right?
And yeah, some sword making still like there's still quite a few like real profound master smiths there, but yeah, primarily they just make chef knives, culinary knives
Okay.
there. And there's many different centers in Japan. Like Takefu is another. Takefu village is a massive one. Um, but yeah, man, I basically could not get anyone to even respond to me. Um, it was very defeating. I put out all these feelers. I try to do business, and I couldn't.
Right.
And it really put me off. I've basically stopped it. I was like, well, this isn't going to work. So then I tried I've tried going the Chinese made route. This isn't where I wanted to go at all. Basically went out of desperation. And with Chinese manufacturers, it was a complete different story, right? Like they were so eager for my business. They wanted to work together. They made it so easy. Having said that, language was still a barrier because we spoke through, various automated translator tools. Yeah. And even though I felt like my requirements were understood, we've communicated over 12 months, over a 12-month period. And I was really particular about what I wanted, right? Like I didn't just want something off the shelf. Anyway, I felt like my requirements were understood, but when the final product arrived, I paid for some samples to be manufactured. When the final product arrived, to say that it was bad would be saying nothing at all. It was right. Disgusting. Like I have them hanging on my wall of shame. They're terrible. They're embarrassing to show to anyone.
Right.
I did put them up because it's a cool story.
Story.
Yeah, but so basically that failed, and I was like, well, what can I do? I left that project alone for a while, and then someone suggested to me, I don't remember who it was, but a mate of mine suggested, why don't you hire an interpreter and try the Japanese route again? So that's what I did. Hired a Japanese interpreter, Yasuhiro, awesome guy. We talk quite often these days. Yep. And he basically, we went out to a lot of the manufacturers again, and we got some responses this time, just because we approached them in Japanese.
Yeah.
And then we kicked off a discussion in Japanese, but very, very quickly, I started talking directly to the factory in English. And it took a lot of back and forth to try to come up with a product that I'd be happy to put my name on, and the factory will be happy to manufacture. We've discussed all aspects, so I wanted a particular steel. I wanted Aogami Super, which is an incredibly tough, wear-resistant carbon steel that takes a great edge. I wanted it to be semi-construction because even though my customers are knife aficionados, a lot of them do not want the trouble of looking after a full carbon knife. So having a carbon core and stainless jacket.
Oh, stainless jacket, carbon core, so it's not going to rust.
Yeah, so basically the only bit that can develop patina or rust if you don't look after it at all is the core, whereas a jacket, which comprises 90% of the blade height, is it's stainless steel.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So very easy to look after. Very easy to look after, but keeps a great edge. Yeah, so that semi-construction is basically the best of both worlds, which is what I wanted for my production knives. Yeah, right. I wanted a particular edge geometry. I wanted a particular finish on it. I wanted a particular handle type. So all that took a long time to turn around. Got the samples. Samples were pretty good. Made a few tweaks on it, and that's what we rolled with.
And how many did you make?
So we made 80 as the first run. I believe I've made another 50 since then, and I'm now just talking to them about another run of probably a couple of hundred. Look, it's been successful. The problem is me. Like I need to be way more active in selling them. I don't enjoy selling knives. I enjoy making knives. So
you need a manager, my friend.
Yeah, I do. I need a lot of things, man. I know what my shortcomings are. There's a lot that I'm not good at. I'm good at making knives. But I'm not good at a lot of other things that come along with it. Because like you, mate, you have you've built up. It's not like you have built up an amazing business, right? Like you have people working for you, you have books, you have merchandise, you have all of that is built on your reputation. You have your beautiful studio.
People are important, right?
100%, man. You've got the right team around you.
Yeah. Having people beside you and knowing who to trust and knowing who not to trust.
So important, right? So important.
As well.
I'm a one-man shop, dude. Like, so anything that I do is me. I'm ordering my supplies. I'm speaking to, manufacturers. I'm placing orders. I'm organizing T-shirts. I'm organizing my attendance to various shows. I make the knives. I put them on the website. I pack them in a box. Sometimes my wife would go and ship them for me. I fill out the customs declarations. Like, I do everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's overwhelming.
It sounds like
I'd
you need.
really like just to make knives.
Sounds like you need an assistant, dude. At least 1 or 2 days a week.
If I was doing this full time, I think I would have
Man, it sounds like. I mean, again, I'm not tattooing you, so I can't bust your balls too much. But
to.
it sounds like you should be, dude. It sounds like you should be. I mean,
Yeah.
your attention to detail. Those production knives were sweet, dude. They were really sweet. Nice
Oh man,
packaging.
they're awesome, dude. Like, I use, I have a lot of knives on my knife rack. A lot of that I made. A lot of other people have made. I have a production knife, and seriously, like, I reach out. My wife and I both reach for a production knife, like 70% of the time.
Yeah, right.
It's
got that feel to it.
it's the most used knife in our kitchen these days. It's incredible, and for the money, right? Like, for what you're paying for it, it's you can't really beat it.
Well, I bought that big one off you, that fucking giant one you made.
Yeah,
That
you use
pretty
it?
expensive. Oh yeah. We use it when
Yeah,
we're cutting briskets. We got a
yeah,
big fucking 70 by 40 meter
yeah,
thick oak brisket board.
yeah,
That's the
man.
brisket that lives on the wall. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, I bought some. I
beautiful.
bought some beef shorties for the weekend just yesterday. So looking forward to
Yeah,
throw
right.
that in the smoke. Huh?
Well, we've butchered one of our cows now, so we've got one of our cows in the
Yeah,
freezer.
sick.
So we're
I
eating our
love what you're
meat.
doing, man, with your little homestead. It's incredible. I'm
It's
really
look,
really envious.
it's a lot more work. Dude, you were an inspiration for me. You bought your little 5 acres, and
Yeah,
I was watching your photos
I
and your videos, and
remember.
I'm living
You
in the
were
fucking
asking me a lot of questions. I remember.
yeah, man. And I was like,
Yeah,
fuck, this guy's living the dream.
yeah,
And then we set out to buy a little hobby farm and leave the city, and it just turned into this 450-acre place was available. And we're like, fuck, all right, let's be farmers, right? And then we need cows, we need pigs, we need chickens.
yeah. Yeah, man. And like, knowing you'll take everything to extreme.
I kind of do, yeah. A little bit
Yeah.
funny like that.
That's awesome, man. It's incredible to watch, and I'm wondering, like, how you manage all that. Like, I mean, I know that you split your time between the city and the farm life, but the farm seems like a full time enterprise with the amount of livestock you have
Yeah,
and the land.
it's a lot of work. Like I spent probably because the first year I was there, I didn't work at the farm at all. I only worked in the city. So I was probably out on the land 3 full days a week, fixing fences, clearing up
Yeah,
garbage. Because it was a little bit run down when I bought it. Like the fences were falling and there was shit everywhere. So I spent a good year just fixing it up. I'm getting a bunch of fences replaced right now. So that's more work for me to clean up the rubbish from that, which I'll be doing over Christmas. But cows, once you have your herd of cows and the fences are good, they're really low maintenance, man. You just got to move them around every month or two to a different paddock so they people
yeah,
it down, a new paddock. Pigs live in a pen. You feed them once a day. They're pretty low maintenance. Pigs are the best in terms of what you get from an animal. Like you got to feed pigs a lot, but you butcher a pig, man. You got a pig that weighs 150 kilos. You're getting, a good 120 kilos of meat off it, right? Like
yeah. That's
cows,
crazy.
half of a cow bones. You lose half, right?
Yeah,
But pigs are
man.
you got to bring the family down, man, and you got to come
Yeah,
and
I
fucking
really have to, dude. I really have to. I mean, I'd love to come visit your homestead. I love
yeah.
everything about it, dude. Everything about what you guys are
We got a
doing is.
second house there, man. Just come bring the family, stay in the second house.
You've
I got
said
a
that.
bunch of dirt
You've
bikes.
said that so many times to me, man. I really feel bad that I haven't done it
Well, look, we're all busy, dude. I mean, you're
yet.
doing your
Yeah,
thing. I'm when I'm in the city, I don't get to see anybody. My wife's like, "Oh, you get to go in the city half a week." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I mean, I'm working, right?
you're working.
I go to
Yeah,
the gym, I do my podcast, I work 8 9 hours a day, and then I go eat and I go to sleep, right? And then I'm at the
yeah,
farm.
man. By the time you're done tattooing, like, man, that is extreme focus right there.
Well, I leave
Can't
home
really
at
do much else after.
4:35 a.m. on Thursdays, and I get home at 10 o'clock on a Saturday, right?
Mm.
So half the
Yeah,
week I'm
man.
just in a different world, right? Let's get
Dude,
back
quick
to the
question. Sorry, quick
yeah.
question, man. If my phone dies, because I can't see the percentage of my battery, what is that a problem? Should I go get a charger, plug it in?
Get a charger, man.
Okay, give me a sec.
Okay.
I'm just gonna leave you here. I'll go get
Go
my
grab it.
battery pack.
Yeah, man. That looks like Dimitri's workshop right there. For a guy who didn't have a screwdriver, he's doing pretty good. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, do so because the more subscribers I get, it helps me get reach and lets me see that I'm making an effect by sharing this content and stuff. Um, and if you haven't bought a T-shirt from my shop, go to authentic.com. We've got a little e-store there. You can buy some prints, some T-shirts, and I'll put Dimitri's website up after, so you can go check out his knives and all that kind of thing as well. He's back.
Oh, you've used your time wisely, man. Upselling people.
Yeah, I just did
Nice, man.
a little shilling for my e-shop. Now, what do you know about the original? Just want to talk about sword making for a minute because you
Yeah.
probably know a little bit more about this than me. So they would dig out the sand and the soil that has the ore in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
And
tough process, man.
I've watched some little documentaries on it, right? But this is where it all comes from. The Japanese way of making swords is
Yeah.
the dirt with the ore, and they'd make like a clay smelter. Is that right?
Yeah. So the steel that they're trying to produce is called tamahagane.
That's the one. Yep.
And yeah, basically they make basically a smelter. You are melting whatever compounds you put in, and that tamahagane that you end up with is extremely rich in carbon and makes
Right.
perfect base to make a sword out of. So I've actually made quite a few tamahagane myself, like with supervision by a few master smiths, and it's an extremely man, it's a dirty, hard, hot process.
You've done the actual
Yeah,
making
like
the
we've
steel.
done the smelting, yeah, and it's not like I can't say that I enjoy that process at all. There's some people like my Jez from Oblivion Blades is Mert that are doing Mert Tensu, mates of mine that are doing they are actually doing that. They're smelting their own steel.
Here in Australia?
Here in Australia, yeah.
Wow.
But personally, having gone through the process myself, I'm just like I don't really see the appeal. I get it. I totally get why they do it, and it's great for them. I respect them for their craft. Personally, that's
Yeah.
not my jam. But it was great to experience it and to actually be able to speak about it firsthand. Hard
Yeah.
work, man. Hard work. Results are worth it. But modern steels, in my opinion, have reached a point where they are so good. You don't necessarily need to go through that process. Back then, they
Right.
went through that process out of necessity, right?
Right. Nothing else. You couldn't just pour
There
steel
was
on it.
nothing else.
Right?
Yeah, these days you have commercially available steels. Like fourth generation powder steels, um, uh, Damasteel, Sandvik. They make amazing stainless steels that are made from. They're called powdered steels, right? Like so, all the particles are so fine. They're made from powder, and they can
Right.
control each element to with incredible precision, exactly how like any alloy can be made up by adding this ingredients.
Right.
And it's
Right.
so incredibly precise. You'd never be able, well, maybe not never. I do have friends that can do that. But you can just buy that off the shelf these days. A lot of what tamahagane offers. Now, having said that, tamahagane has an incredible results in incredible like alloy banding, so it looks visually pleasing when it's
Right.
polished and etched. So there's definitely an appeal to the traditionally made tamahagane steel. So yeah, I can see both
And
sides of it.
the story, the provenance of the steel, and
Yeah,
right.
there's definitely a story to be told there, 100%.
Now
Yeah,
with the tomahawk, you're also, are you folding the steel as well?
well, you basically, yeah, you're refining it. So once you have that tamahagane, it's a bloom. It's very porous. It's not
Right. You
homogeneous
gotta
at
hammer it.
all. So you basically need
You gotta
to, yeah, you need to hammer it down. You need to flatten it out. You need to fold it onto itself, and eventually, as you are refining it, it's becoming homogeneous, and it
right,
doesn't have any inclusions, and is becoming more pure. So
right,
yeah,
right.
basically folding it is a mechanism to refine
Is it giving it strength as well, like tensile strength,
it. I mean,
or is that
because it
just a
is,
byproduct
yeah,
of
because it is
purification?
homogeneous steel, it becomes obviously stronger, right? It doesn't have any inclusions or air bubbles in it, so yeah, there's no stress rises. It becomes homogeneous steel. But yeah, it's a cool process, man, for sure.
I mean, to take a blob
Hey,
of steel and to
Luna,
hammer it
stop it.
into a perfectly straight. I mean, my swords that I have, I've got one from the 1300s, which I'm assuming was, made
Yeah,
in this particular fashion.
yeah.
To make it so straight and so perfect and so refined, I mean, the amount of time and labor and
Oh
dedication, right?
man, it is it's a it's a true skill. So sword making is an incredible skill. Um, and what a lot of people don't realize, like in Western culture, we traditional workshops like mine, and there's a lot of knife makers in Australia and overseas. We tend to do everything ourselves. So we would do everything ourselves. We would forge ourselves, we would grind ourselves, we would heat treat ourselves, polish, handle fitting, shirasaya, everything. Like everything would be done by one person. In Japan,
Right.
that's not at all what happens. You'd have a master who would make tamahagane, and then he would forge it out. From that point onwards, you'd have, and he would heat treat it. From that point onwards, you'd have someone who would be, they call it sharpening, but really it's grinding. So you'd be grinding the bevels.
Right.
You have someone that would be just polishing the steel. Then you'd have
That's right.
someone
So a
that,
sword polisher is different than a sword maker.
yeah, it's a totally different
So
skill
he
set.
so he's the guy, because I bought my swords from one of Australia's most famous sword polishers.
Yeah,
So he did a traditional Japanese apprenticeship for
yeah,
10
yeah,
years,
yeah,
won an award in Japan, then came back here, and he's very well sought after here.
yeah,
And Andrew, can't remember his last name, unfortunately. Um, and so it's the shine, like the buffing, the polishing, the putting the edge on it, and that
yes.
in itself is a craft, right?
Man, it's an incredible craft, yeah. So I have a large collections of waterstones, synthetics and natural Japanese waterstones. But so yeah, polishers would basically be, they would be ensuring that the bevel is ground properly, that it has a clear definition of the bevel. Um, Depending on, well, whatever edge geometry was forged in, they basically refined that edge geometry to a zero, and then they would be polishing that, all the surfaces of the blade to pretty much a mirror polish, right? Revealing the hamon, revealing all the alloy bending, all the activity that knife has within it.
Right.
And that's an incredible skill and an extremely time consuming process. Now, it could take months to finish a single sword.
How do
Uh,
you get a mirror finish on a sword blade using a stone?
Man, very hard. Like that's a simple way to explain it. Very difficult. You basically take the stone through a progression, like various grits of stones. So you start with a coarser
Right.
stone, medium, fine, super fine. Yeah, so that would be done on the stones. Then they use like little finger stones to reveal activity in particular. The hamon activity.
Right.
Um, they would polish the blade differently below the hamon line versus above the hamon, and to reveal all the ashi, all the
Right.
like all the subtle activities. And then ultimately there's all the polishers use different techniques, but you could use like silicon carbide powder mixed, suspended in oil or mineral oil, and you use that as a polish compound as well. Yeah, but all by hand, man. It's again, extremely time consuming and difficult process. And imagine like you're working like this far away from cutting your finger off with every single move.
Right.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
But the people who do this shokunin spirit we spoke about,
Yeah, yeah.
you have to love what you do.
Oh,
I mean,
100%, 100%.
It's like when people look at me doing backgrounds by hand on a back piece, and I got tattooers, well-known dudes, and like, fuck, man, that looks so fucking slow and time-consuming. I don't know how you fucking do it. I'm like, man, I love it, dude. I love doing backgrounds. For me, it's super satisfying. Color is color.
Yeah.
But to do a good backgrounds and have the nice grayscales and the nice shade and everything by hand, it's a magical thing, right? So
yeah, man.
I understand.
A lot of just back to your tattoos. A lot of people, when they talk to me about my tattoos, they're all amazed that my tattoos are like 10 years old. They're like, "Have you had it retouched? Have you had it redone?" I'm like, "No, man. Like this is just what a good tattoo looks like."
Well, they're supposed to last. Right?
Yeah, like people don't, they see that stuff that's been done, in your corner shop, and they're like, that stuff will fade a couple of years later, and you'd have to have it redone. They don't know what a real tattoo needs to look like.
What's the benefit of making your own inks and all the processes that I do that are time consuming as well? I mean, people are like, "Oh, my friend's tattoo only took this long. Why is this taking so long?" And I'm like, "Well, man, because your tattoo's still going to look good in 10, 15, 20 years."
Yeah.
Right?
And I was really surprised how long that tattoos did take with you, man. Fucking took forever. But, and then you wear it forever. So it makes sense.
That's the thing, right? I mean, it's forever. It's not, it's not for Instagram, right? And that's, imagine if a lot of tattoo culture is for the gram, right? People are just doing a tattoo as quick as they can, get the photo for the Instagram, move on to the next customer, right?
Yeah, imagine that's certainly not you, mate.
But imagine if we transpose that ideology or that perspective onto what you do. Imagine you're making kitchen knives just for Instagram.
Yeah.
And then some chef's fucking using it and it's dull and fucked after 3 weeks. Right?
There are knives like that on Instagram. All over Instagram.
I'm sure
there.
Yeah. I'm sure there are, right?
Definitely there.
But this is again why I wanted to have you on, because I know that your work ethic and your attention to detail and your insanity is similar in vein to mine.
Yeah, man. It's as I said, a gift and a curse.
Right.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself going now? I've seen you've been on the cover of some knife magazines in Australia and overseas as well, right?
Yeah. It's been
you've gotten some
pretty
exposure.
Incredible. Yeah, man. It's so yeah. I've been lucky enough to have to have my work discovered by people that appreciate knives and various chefs and home cooks. And yeah, certainly the being on the cover of a few magazines helped that as well. But because I don't do this as a full-time gig, and because I'm not able to take orders, I'm really shooting myself in the foot. So all of this exposure, it does result in interest in my knives, but my response to everyone is, sorry, I don't take orders. Because I've been through this, man. Like I've at an earlier point in my career, maybe when I was making knives for 4 or 5 years, I was taking orders, and my order book grew to over 5 years long. Now at that point, I'd open up an order book and contact the customer. I'd spend all this time discussing what they wanted, and that's a very time-consuming process. And then I would go and make that knife exactly how that customer wanted it. And a lot, and obviously I would influence a lot of the decisions when it came to that knife, just like you influence a lot of decisions when it comes to the customer's tattoo choice. But that process is extremely time consuming. And at times, elements of that knife would be there that I wouldn't enjoy making. Uh, and I was like, why am I doing this? What am I doing with my knife making, I suppose, hobby? Like, why am I doing something that someone else wants me to do? So once I got through the backlog, I was like, that's it. I'm not taking any more orders. I'm going to make stuff that I want to make, stuff that I enjoy doing, stuff that I can pour the entirety of my soul and being into, and then I'll just sell it. So this has been my mode of operation for the last 5 years or so. It's working
Okay.
well. However, it doesn't gel well with, when someone comes and says, "Hey, can you, I've seen you here. Can you do it? Can you take an order?" And I'm like, "No, subscribe to my mailing list." So yeah, I'm shooting myself in the foot big time. But that's because I'm not treating this as a sole source of my income, which I don't want
Right.
to do. It's kind of
Ever.
a circle. Maybe, look, I'll never say never. Things happen. Maybe at some point in my life I will do that. I'd like to. I'd like to give it a go. Um, not right now.
So you have kids too. You have a daughter?
Yeah, man. I got one. Got a girl. She's Eva. She's starting primary school in Feb. It's incredible.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Well, yeah. When we met, neither one of us had kids. Now you got three. You weren't even married to Haley when we met, man.
No, no, no. I was perpetual child, mate. I had motorcycles and I partied and I, went out late
Yeah.
and then when the kid, you know how it is when the kid comes along, you downloads a whole new firmware into your brain,
Yeah. 100%.
upgrades the system, and you're like, yep, fuck all that shit off, go in this
Yeah.
direction. It should, anyways. It did for me. It did for you.
Yeah. No, definitely did, man. Yeah. I remember going to your wedding.
Yeah,
How long ago was that now?
that was 2017. Yeah,
Okay,
my
so that.
daughter was a year and a half old.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
I mean, when you have kids, it gives you something to work towards as well, right? It gives you like, you got some sense of legacy. You got to be a provider, a role model.
Yeah, dude.
You're they say you're planting trees you will never get the shade from.
Yeah, I love that saying. I love that saying.
Right?
And you got three girls.
And
That's incredible, man. I don't know how you do it.
yeah, well, I have the best wife in the world, dude. That's
Yeah,
how I do
Haley's
it.
awesome, man. Yeah.
So, so if people wanted to buy knives that you had for sale, so your name is Dimitriy Popov,
That
right?
is my
And
name,
you're
Kian. Yes.
DP Custom Knives.
DP
That's
Custom
your
Knives.
company.
Yeah. Who not? Stop it. Hey, enough. Yeah,
Now,
dpcustomknives.com.au is my website. DP
yep.
Custom Knives is my Instagram handle. Yeah, Dimitri Popov is my name. Yeah,
Okay.
just check out the website. There's a sign up to the mailing list.
You're just outside of Sydney, New South Wales, so you're local to us
Yeah,
here
so
in
we
the
just
city.
moved from Sydney 2 years ago during COVID to Central Coast.
Yep.
So we're about 2 hours away from Sydney.
You've been out of Sydney more than 2 years, dude. I've been out of Sydney for 2 years.
Okay, yeah, actually, you're right. 3 years. 2020
Yeah.
December we moved in here, and now it's
Like I
December
said, you were one
2023.
of my biggest inspirations. I was fucking watching you with your big fires and your
Yeah,
deck and I was like, fuck.
yeah, man.
So
It
your fault.
was life changing, and I'm so glad we did it. Like we live 12 minutes from the beach, in the middle of a
Yeah,
forest. Like,
that's awesome,
what
dude.
else can you wish for? It's
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah.
I would like some more flat land. That would be nice. My whole property is it's basically it's quite hilly. And
Undulating.
where yeah, undulating, and where the house is like basically the only flat spot on the entire acreage. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd like some more flat land, but other than that, there's not much else to wish for.
Yeah. And this is your workshop here?
Yeah, dude. So the workshop is basically was a three-car garage with a wall in between. So we've knocked out the wall. I mean, this whole space was completely built up from scratch. So we've gutted the whole three-car garage
Right.
and then started from scratch. So we got redid all the floors, got air conditioning, all the workbenches, all the machines, the
So
lights.
that's a one-stop shop. You can do everything there.
Dude, there's nothing that I can't do here. Yeah, I got a forge, I got a power hammer, I got a power press, I got all my heat treating equipment, all my grinding room behind that. So we made a little dust room to keep all the dust in one area. He's got dust extractors there, all the grinding, all the polishings here. Like there is nothing that I can't do in this space.
Now, do you do everything by hand, or do you have like a CNC at all?
No, dude, everything's by hand. I'm
Do you have a mill or a
I've
lathe,
got a
anything like
mill.
that?
Yeah, I have a mill. It's a manual mill. I primarily use it to when I make my handles. I square everything off on it.
Right.
Just makes things much easier to fit when everything is nice and square and flush. But no, I don't have any CNC, so nothing automated. And
Right.
like I wouldn't mind exploring that direction on some of the projects. But that's not where my heart is. Um, my
And so the handles you make, like these lacquered wooden handles you make, you're doing all the woodworking yourself and all the lacquering yourself, and
Yeah, man. So none of them are actually lacquered, but yeah. So I mean, starts off with starts off with a wood block basically, um,
right.
and then I have a bit of a problem when it comes to wood blocks. Um, the collection is so vast, like every shade and every species from all around the world.
Right.
Yeah, like it's a bit of a problem, man. Um, and yeah, like whenever I need to make a knife, I basically open the drawers and I'm like, right, what do I want this handle to be? Do I want it
Right.
dark? Do I want it light? Do I want it with some figure? Do I want it plainer? What is a combination that I want to use for a particular handle? And then yeah,
Right.
basically I take 2 blocks of wood, I cut them to size, I square them off on the mill, I drill a hole in the middle for the dowel to go in.
Yeah.
So what I make are called Y handles. So basically, tang of the knife goes into the handle, so it's not a full tang knife; it's a like stick tang.
Okay.
And yeah, so basically, I make up a handle. There's a dowel in between. There's a slot that's cut into the ferrule of a handle, through which the dowel tang goes in, and then I shape everything by hand on a grinder, and then hand sand it, and then I just use some Danish oil. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so it's
I mean, it looks beautiful. That's why I'm curious about it. Right? Your handles look fucking amazing.
thanks, man.
I'm
It's
gonna put some
quite a
photos of
process.
your work. I'm gonna put some photos of your work in the intro so
Yeah,
people can
cheers,
sort
man.
of have a look before the podcast, so they can sort of see what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, thanks, dude. Yeah, so it's handle is I enjoy making handles. I enjoy making knives. It's an extremely satisfying process, man. Like to be able to actually make something of value that you're proud
yeah,
of, as I'm sure you know.
absolutely. I mean, it's funny because what you do is almost opposite of what I do. I have to work with people
Yeah,
all the time. As you know, you've done what,
yeah,
probably 80 hours with me, right? Being tattooed, something like that.
yeah. I
You got
didn't count, but a lot.
Yeah, you got two 3/4 sleeves with chest plates.
Yeah,
So we'll say 30 to 40 hours each. We spent some time together,
yeah.
you
We
know.
certainly did,
What
man.
you do, what you do is kind of the opposite. You're alone in your little workshop grinding away, and you're very solitude and alone and isolated. And
Yeah,
my work, I'm constantly within a foot of somebody having to talk shit all day,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, in my day job, I spend the entirety of my day with people,
Oh,
coordinating,
okay.
coordinating delivery of various projects. Like I'm dealing with a whole bunch of issues, mostly with people. Um,
Right.
but yeah, when I'm in my workshop, it's complete solitude. I have my AirPods in. I'm either listening to a book, um,
Yeah.
a podcast, some music. So
Yeah.
it's a great time alone. Like I really enjoy it. I get to explore the depths of my mind. Sometimes it's nice, sometimes it's not, but I enjoy the process.
I've got a workshop at my place. I've got a lathe and a mill,
Yeah,
and
cool.
I make my own tabori tools and stuff. I've been experimenting with milling tabori tools out of
Yeah,
aluminum and steel.
I know you've 3D printed. You've 3D printed some of your tools. I remember.
Yeah, I was experimenting with 3D printing for stuff, but they're a little too flexible. I can use them, but they're not ideal. Wood's nice because it's nice and light. I have some bamboo, and that's quite nice. Um, but I've been doing aluminum as well. Sorry, my fucking phone here, dude. It's that time
Yeah, I
of
can
day.
hear it, dude.
So I've been experimenting with milling with aluminum and shaping with the grinder, and that's what this podcast was actually Haley's idea. She goes, "You should get. You've been doing all this stuff with metal. You should be talking to Dimitri."
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's fun,
it's
right?
been
Making
fun.
your own shit.
Oh, dude, I get in the flow state.
Yeah,
I have a huge shed, dude. Like I'm spoiled. I have
yeah.
a 10 by 20 meter shed that's got a 5 meter wall in it. So it's like an airplane hangar.
Yeah.
It's just like fucking
Awesome.
spot, you know?
Awesome.
I've gotten into welding lately as well. So I'm doing TIG welding,
Yeah, right.
stick welding.
How good is that?
Built my own workbenches and stuff. And yeah, it's good, right? So I understand that being in the workshop, building shit yourself and being in that flow state. And
Yeah, man, it's
it's
incredible.
a wonderful thing, dude.
A lot of people don't understand that, right? Like you talk to people, they look at you like you're crazy working in your own workshop, and I kind of get it unless you've experienced it.
Oh, it's the best ever, dude. Love it. I fucking love it.
Yeah, when people hear that I make knives, they look at me real funny a lot of the time.
I'd like to come visit your workshop one day, dude.
Dude, anytime, man. Doors are always open.
I'd like to come watch you work and just run me through. I'm just curious, right? I just want to know I love understanding how shit works.
Yeah, man. We'll take a couple of days for you to see all the processes, but I have a place to stay, so that's not a problem.
All right. Well, I will definitely take you up on that. And obviously, you're welcome at the farm with the family anytime, man. Like I said, I've got some quad bikes, dirt bikes. We'll go.
Yeah, man. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Go chase some kangaroos.
Yeah, man. That sounds awesome. Sounds awesome, dude.
All right, listen, man. Thanks for doing the podcast. I will put your website and Instagram up at the end on the splash screen. And yeah, man. And people want to come, they can. You'll have some more production knives available soon, you were saying?
I will.
So they can join your mailing list. And if they're lucky, they can pick up one of these knives, which I highly endorse because they're fucking awesome. And
thanks, man.
Yeah, man. Congratulations on all your success.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me on, man. And thanks, Haley, for suggesting it.
And I love your work, brother. I love your work.
Well, likewise, man. I was yesterday. I was having a look at because I knew I was coming on. I had a look like how long ago we did this, and when I met you, 2013, I think was the first, when we started.
Yeah, right.
And
10 years.
Yeah, and then I saw I saw you did the reprint of the book that my sleeves were on the cover of.
Right.
And I was it just brought back memories, man. I was so surprised to see. I remember coming to your shop and seeing my sleeves on a book. I was like, "What? Like, what just happened?" That was
That's what people used to buy back when people used to buy books.
Yeah, they were awesome, man. Your book, the way that you printed your books, are so beautiful.
Yeah, I should probably do a reprint with some of the new stuff. Obviously, your sleeves would still make the cut.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, bro. Well, thank you for my tattoos, and thank you for having me on.
Bro. Thanks for your time, man.
Cheers, Kian.
I love what you're doing, brother. I'll talk to you soon,
bro.
brother.
Ciao, Matt. Bye.
Ciao.